Welcome to SEO Chess. We are today looking at game number 4 of the World Championship match. Today, Carlsen was playing white and Nepo was playing black. And if you're looking for excitement or entertainment, you might actually be disappointed in World Championship match games. But it doesn't mean that there's nothing happening, especially in this game. As you probably will see, white played e4, e5, and the first choice for Nepo with black is now the Petrov. Not the most exciting opening in the world. Nevertheless, it's not as straightforward as people assume it is when you know, like at the top they say an opening is drawish. I'm sure Carlsen and Nepo would draw majority of their games if they played anyway, but take an opening like this and play it at club level, you won't find any draws because it requires a high level of accuracy just to maintain the balance. So yeah, this was again, I think, my first surprise. I have the feeling or the expectation that Carlsen is always out for a fight, and I was expecting this move, which has some life in it in terms of fighting and complex positions. But I'm sure he figured that Nepo would be well prepared for that, and they played the usual line or a typical line in the Petrov. If you've played the Petrov, you would definitely eventually run into positions like this at a certain point. So now bishop f5 is an early departure on the square b7, and Carlsen goes for this queen b3. It's actually quite fascinating that they were prepared to this extent in these lines, especially considering that Nepo only, I think, started playing the Petrov at the candidates. You notice a pattern in his play since the candidates is becoming a bit more solid. And this happens for everyone who sort of goes for the World Championship title. You cannot compete with people like this without actually becoming a bit more solid. And Nepo, during the press conference, mentioned this concept that it's not a question of openings, it's a question of approach, that his play is changing, of course. So knight c3 here, and bishop f5. A bit of a complex way of exchanging, but it's pretty much straightforward. And now we get this position where, yes, black has got an isolated pawn, but it's not easy to reach, it's not easy to attack. And as you will see, there are some ideas related to the weakness of this pawn being isolated. Maybe not enough to cause an imbalance, but definitely something to play for. With this move, the move c4 now utilizes the pin against the queen. Of course, Nepo immediately retreats and goes into this position where he quickly plays a4. And here, this is the point where Carlsen played a new move. And the idea is understandable. But if you've been following Carlsen's games, you'll notice a lot in his games where there's e4, e5. That eventually the knight on f3 in your typical e4, e5 games is usually attacking a pawn which is on e5, which is well protected most of the time, and you have no hope really of winning that pawn. Eventually, Carlsen has had this pattern where he plays knight h4, g3, knight g2, reroutes this knight to e3, and it starts doing other things. And here, when he played knight h4, that was the idea. Actually, there was a game I analyzed a while back, maybe not on the channel, but I think it was with a training group, where he was playing against Wesley So, and he played the typical idea. And of course, when he plays knight h5, you have to be worried or thinking about knight f5, so you have to play g6. And it also happened the same way in that game. And now he goes g4. g4, a way of suppressing and potentially suppressing f5, but also eventually going g5, as you see later on in the game. But he creates a square here on g2 where the knight will go to e3, put pressure on d5. That's why I was saying it's like it might not be exciting, but it's very tricky approaches to trying to convert the game. And they're testing each other, of course. It's a World Championship match to see how prepared they were. When when Carlsen played the move knight h4, Nepo was clearly surprised with this move. But when I listened to the press conference, he knew this position and he knew the ideas of how to deal with this. It really wasn't. I think he was surprised by the fact that actually Carlsen could find this move over the board, I think. So here, bishop f4. Of course, if the knight ends on f4, it's putting pressure on d5. And later on, you really think about it, knight f6 now cannot protect because of this move g4. That's how complex this was. And Carlsen commented also at the press conference that the way that Nepo handled the position is not the only way. There are much more complex ways that this position could be handled. Just to show that it's not, like I saw some people saying, oh, the game was down. It's not down. It's just like, you don't get it. That's it. What's really just happening. Take, and now he's putting pressure on d5, and of course, Nepo is banking on this. And now, knight takes d5, rook here, and now rook e7. And this is the position that Carlsen was talking about, that if it's amazing that Nepo was prepared to bank his whole defense on this setup where he puts the knight on f8 and he hopes he can promote the a pawn. Okay, so knight f6 check, and now check, and as you can see, white already has a reserve draw, but he tries to go for more. Of course, you can't take. That's the easy part. If you take, knight f6 check, and you lose the rook. But what's amazing is after a4, I think Carlsen, they had a lot of time. Carlsen thought for like about 30 minutes around here. And what he was considering was complex ideas starting with d6, and from some workouts with computers which are long, there's no win, but it's not easy, as you can imagine. And the fact that he actually looked at it and saw that it didn't work and didn't pursue it and had to settle for a repetition of draw, I think I wasn't disappointed with the game. I think the game was actually quite amazing and detailed, and showed you an insight of the level of preparation that these guys have to go to. So we now sit at game number 4 with 4 draws. This is not the worst thing that has happened to a World Championship match. It's the fight between the best. I definitely would rather see draws with better quality games than to just compromise and say, oh, I want to see fireworks, but with no depth. So tomorrow is another game, which seems to be very exciting. And I think Carlsen is realizing that I think this match is not as easy as it seems. And Nepo is definitely prepared for this match.